You're watching LMCC.
Welcome. My name is Peg DuBoard, and I'm with the League of Women Voters, Lake Minnetonka, Plymouth area. And I'd like to welcome you to the Mayor's Forum and welcome the audience to the Mayor's Forum and the mayors and Dan, who's the mayor's stand-in today. So we're pleased once again to partner with Lake Minnetonka Communication Commission. Tyler and his team will be recording the forum tonight, which will air on the League's website and will be shared with the cities for their communication purposes. Late last year, South Tonka and the Wayzata Plymouth League of Women Voters chapters merged to form the Lake Minnetonka Plymouth Area League. This new league now encompasses all the cities surrounding Lake Minnetonka, with the exception of Minnetonka, who belongs to another league that involves Hopkins and Eden Prairie. We believe that this merger will enhance our capacity to support candidate forums during election periods, as well as strengthen our efforts in voting, democracy, and community initiatives. Now, for those of you who don't know about the League of Women Voters, I'll give you just a little history. The League of Women Voters in Minnesota was formed when the 19th Amendment was enacted, giving women the right to vote. That was in 1919. So for the past 106 years, the League has maintained its nonpartisan status, neither supporting nor opposing political parties or candidates, but focusing on voting and policy issues of critical importance to the public. Today, the League welcomes all genders beginning at the age of 16. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education, advocacy, and reform, with the major goal of encouraging the active and informed participation of citizens in government. So for tonight, we're in for a treat. I always love doing this event because the mayors always have fun, and we have fun doing this presentation. The questions we have received from the community have been organized into categories and consolidated when there were similar questions were submitted. We will be taking questions from the audience. There are no cards to write your questions on and then hand them to one of the League members. We have 90 minutes, so there may not be enough time for all questions. For the mayors, just FYI, for your closing remarks, you'll have 2 to 3 minutes to kind of share your thoughts, but I'd like you to kind of think about what were the major accomplishments for your city for this year, and if you had extra financial resources, like an extra pot of gold, how would you see these being used? Okay, so to welcome our panel, we have Adam Jennings, who is the mayor of Tonka Bay, Dan Madsen, who is a city administrator for Deephaven. He's standing in for Mayor Kent Carlson. Gary Wingate, mayor of Excelsior.
Nope.
Jennifer Labadie, mayor of Shorewood.
Hi.
And Tom Fletcher, who is the mayor of Greenwood.
Nope.
So here we go for the questions tonight. In the current state of federal government flux, the community is wondering how the following might affect our cities. What impact will potential federal funding cuts have on cities, and which areas will be most affected? Anybody have a crystal ball?
Well, I'll jump in on this one because we actually are dealing with this from a city perspective already. As some of you may already know, our 2023 project where we are improving our main water line down County Road 19, it's about 2 miles. We replaced that project in its entirety. And we're actually going to be wrapping up the last few pieces of that this upcoming spring. But we had received a $3 million federal grant for that project. And once we tie everything off, that's when they are planning to provide the funds to us. But we've had a few different issues where, one, we just generally, is that $3 million in play? We've had some issues from a technical standpoint, either setting up, we have a new city administrator and he's tying into the HUD system, which essentially administrates those funds. And there's been a little bit of a lag there because the employees that would help our city administrate these things and set that account up have either been furloughed or let go. So there's been some issues there. So We're still anticipating and we're planning on receiving that $3 million, but we're also talking right now about potentially setting up alternative financing, temporary financing, to see if we can, if we have to bridge that gap. But we don't know yet.
Okay. Anybody else have some response?
Similar with Adam over there, we have a couple of grants out there that we're worried about the funding with, and same thing, our city staff is trying to figure out some alternatives if they can't figure it out or get it settled. So I think everybody's kind of suffering from that.
Any other cities specifically have any other? Nope.
Greenwood has no federal grants.
Yeah,
Does have
Shorewood
the
has-
benefit, so we have no benefit of it, so we also have, yeah. I
At
went
the
back.
moment, Shorewood has no federal grants, but on the other hand, it prevents cities from seeking additional sources of potential income for future projects. When cities that already have grants that are now in limbo, it constricts the expansive thinking of the leadership of cities, because we're not going to seek that money.
Dan, did you have something to say, Dan?
Well, I did. We had $1 million that was set aside in one of the federal bills for funding for our Village Hall Park project. And obviously, we're not sure how to plan that with the uncertainty that we're seeing. So whether it's applying for grants or waiting patiently for some type of resolution, it does put cities in a bit of a holding pattern.
Okay, the next question is, are there any state legislations that cities are monitoring that would, that could be possible impacts? State funding issues, things that might happen that you
Excelsior's been pursuing pretty hard for the last couple of years, a bonding bill for infrastructure, for water mains and stuff. I know this year, actually, the bill did get dropped, thanks to our representatives. Again, we're waiting to see how that progresses. We know it's in committee. We're just kind of keeping our eyes on it to see where that goes.
Okay. Any other? Tom?
These aren't money issues, but I think they're very important issues. There has been a big push at the state legislatures for the state to get involved in local zoning and planning, driven by the issues with provision of housing and, quote, sufficient housing in Minnesota, and not to take away from the fact, at least in my mind, and I think the rest of my council's mind, that housing isn't an issue and there aren't issues providing housing. And really, fundamentally, the issues are money-driven, lack of money to support a lot of the housing, cost of building, interest rates. The issues aren't city-driven, but when people look for solutions, they say, oh, it's the city's zoning, the city's planning, city restrictions that are, I think, are irrelevant, candidly. But there's a push for all these things, and actually the interesting thing, when I was door knocking for the last election, this is a thing that residents in Greenwood at least brought up concerns that, you know, that essentially the city's probably the biggest issue, that hearing sort of the grapevine that the city control of zoning and planning would be taken away, and you think about it, and it's just in subtle ways, like requiring, example, legislation proposed in the past, and I apologize, put me shut up, I'm going on too long, was that you could take any single-family lot, and if you met certain things, you could put a 6-unit on a single-family lot. Well, that might not fit well in some areas of some cities, and by the way, in our areas that have no transit, or where we are, it isn't really the most effective place necessarily to automatically put that. So I think a misguided solution, but that is back in a big way this year at the legislature. It's coming back in terms of bills being proposed. League of Cities is very opposed. So cities as a whole are opposed. Metro Cities is very opposed. It's a key item. We are, I think everybody here, in fact, I know when we're talking with our legislators, I think they are on board, candidly, but we need to keep them on board. Second issue, at the risk of talking too long, that people don't think about till they need ambulance, is that our EMS response, at least the folks who are in Hennepin Health area, is really slow for every city out here. Once their paramedics show up, they're great. They have really good paramedics. They have really good equipment, but it takes too friggin' long for them to get there here, typically. And I think the solution is the legislature, we've once again talked to our representatives, is a push for local control. And that doesn't mean that we start operating our own paramedic service. It just means that we can talk to Hennepin Health or whoever we want to provide service. And by the way, they do a really good job about better response times, that you stage ambulances here consistently, so that the response times you get if you live in Minneapolis, you also get in this neighborhood. Their average response time is, according to their reports, is a little bit under 7 minutes in their last monthly report. In Greenwood, we had 6 calls, code 3 calls. In November, average response of 14 minutes. Okay? Tonka Bay is even worse typically, by the way, because it takes them longer to get to Tonka Bay. I'm just saying, to me, pushing for local control, that those are, to me, I could give other issues, but I've talked too long. Those are 2 hot button topics I think are hugely important.
You beat me to the punch.
Sorry, Adam.
No, and I really want to take the time to thank Tom for kind of spearheading this, because this is something that he's really brought to the forefront, and he's been working on pretty consistently over the last couple of years. And I feel like we're getting some traction here. So wholeheartedly would second that. For Tonka Bay, really everything for us comes down to infrastructure improvement. We're just in a position where we have to improve, our water lines at the end of the day. And I'll say it. We've been working with Representative Myers, who's here. He's been extremely proactive in reaching out to our city to see what he can do to help garner funds for infrastructure, as is Ann Johnson Stewart, our senator, as well. But ultimately, any help that we can get to help improve our water lines, which keep breaking, is our focus.
Okay.
And I'll piggyback off of that, even though it's not relevant to the question that was asked. Tonka Bay has failing water lines, or water lines that need help. Shorewood has many portions of our city that doesn't even have a water line. So over half of the households in Shorewood are not connected to city water. Some are by choice. There's a water line out front and they have not chosen, but many residents are not connected because no infrastructure exists on their street. And as Gary's the retired fire chief, he would, I'm sure, agree, when there's no water lines, there are no fire hydrants, which means when there's an emergency in the form of a fire, tanker trucks have to pump from the closest hydrant back to the fire. It slows response time, it's dangerous. I mean, I'm piggybacking off of Adam's response. All of our cities have infrastructure issues, and they're issues that are bigger than our small tax base can remedy all by ourselves, which means we need help from the state level, the county level, the federal level. We need to look at all different options. And like I said earlier, cities are not going to be looking to the federal options at the moment because it's too in limbo. So.
And I'll add to the EMS thing if I can on that, because that honest, when I was fire chief, we fought that 20-some years ago. It's been a perpetual problem out here. They talk about kind of the topography and all that, and that sure plays into it. But I think after COVID, they had a real change in their methodology about how they deployed their units, and they went back to, because we worked really hard with Deephaven when we started the Station 2 to get ambulance in there, so we had a unit in our area out here, and they've pulled away from that. So Heather Adelson, our rep with the Hennepin County Commissioner, she is working very diligently, and Tom has been in her ear constantly, so she doesn't get many good sleep nights, I think, with Tom around. But they're definitely looking into it, and she's really working on it. So we're trying. We got another meeting coming up where we're trying to hold their feet to the fire. The county is a different animal to work with altogether. So
You all have been reading my mind because one of the questions was, do you have any issues with Hennepin County that are an impediment, or with Hennepin County that are great?
I don't know if anybody's got anything great, but our new commissioner is definitely, I think, a blessing. I think she's really thoughtful out here. She really cares about us, and it's just a matter of us making sure that we get her the information so she can try to go to task with that and carry forward with our visions.
Well, and I would say too, Commissioner Edelson recently hosted a meeting that included all of the cities in her district. And in the room, she had the county administrator with us, and felt like we made some really good forward motion at that particular meeting. She's very open to our ideas, really grabbed the bull by the horns on that one. But where was I headed with this? Anyway, she really has been a blessing, so.
Well, that's a positive.
Yeah.
He actually, it was pretty interesting to watch the dynamic between them, because you could tell there was definitely some concern on his part that these were things that had never been brought to him before, and he was definitely like, why is this going on? Tell me why, I need results.
We've got some ideas, I can
Yep.
get the money, you let me know what the count is. And I did it again, doggone it, I thought I had it, but it doesn't work.
Okay, that's great.
Got it.
Okay, so the next question is, do you have any updates on current or planned development?
Excelsior, go ahead, Tom.
Greenwood, I have no idea what's happening to the old log.
Okay, is it still in limbo?
Still in limbo as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna say Excelsior does not have a parking problem anymore. We have a parking garage.
Yeah.
So that's, we are going to have a ribbon cutting on, pardon me 1 second, I believe it's the 5th. But yes, we're gonna have a ribbon cutting for that event on the 4th, sorry, March 4th. The other thing, I believe sometime in April, we'll be hearing about moving forward with a project on the Pizza Hut lot. I've also had a meeting with John Davis about the old gas station across from my old shop, and moving forwards with something from that. And the Tailwind people who bought the old Bayside Event Center in that whole corner over there are going to be coming forwards with some stuff, and actually are hoping this summer to reinvigorate and revitalize the kind of that Bayview, the Bayside Bar and Grill that was going on. So that will be going this summer already. So we have a lot of irons in the fire in Excelsior right now. Our planning department is bracing for a lot.
From Tonka Bay's perspective, I mean, we're largely built out as a city. But one thing that our staff has been working diligently for the past 6 to 8 months to do code review for us. We actually had our first meeting to kind of sit down and start going through it as a council, essentially just piece by piece. Tonka Bay's code, the basis of it was written a long time ago, and over time, things have just been bolted onto it, and it's kind of turned into Frankenstein's monster, and it contradicts itself in places. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through everything from top to bottom to try and streamline things for residents, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you want to make an alteration to your home or build a new home, the process should be straightforward and simple. And certainly by doing that, it should also be less expensive for residents. But if you streamline the process, it makes it easier for the residents, it makes it less cumbersome for the staff, and there's more predictability around that. Frankly, it's easier for council too, because the thought of this is if we can create substantial, sound policy, fewer things will actually need to come to council for review. It can be completed at the staff level and hopefully be more efficient for everyone. Oh, and I do want to add, we also will be getting the Caribbean back this summer as well. So.
Oh, that's good too.
As far as Shorewood goes, we are also pretty much built out as a city. We don't have a lot of open lots. There's an organization called the Met Council or Metropolitan Council that kind of helps cities with issues like the sewer lines. But as part of that help, they require that we meet certain parameters. And we have to do something called a comprehensive plan, which lets them know the direction we're planning to take our city in the future. Several years ago, when Shorewood submitted our comprehensive plan to the Metropolitan Council, they failed it. And they failed it on the basis of lack of density, housing density, and lack of affordability. So how do you get this approved when we don't have a lot of empty land to put anything on? So we became creative, and for example, the Holiday gas station on Highway 7, in the event that would ever get torn down and built back up, it could still say commercial with possible housing on top. And we added little pockets like that. Continuing on that train of thought, we have also started redistricting the density of certain areas of the city. You can't do it lot by lot, that's called spot zoning, but you can do a small district. And one of our more recent ones was the district, if you know where the garden patch is, then right next to it there's a small gray building, and across the street is the yacht club. We changed that to a higher density residential possibility in the future. That doesn't mean the garden patch needs to close their doors. They can sell that to someone who would like to maintain it as a garden patch. But they could also sell it to a developer who could put in housing. And there has been a proposal, it's only a proposal, that where the yacht club was, there could potentially be a higher density housing, perhaps townhome, perhaps apartments. And I find that very exciting because we don't have a diversity of housing product. It's very hard for I think our only, and correct me if I'm wrong, mayors, our only police officer on the whole department who lives in the cities they police is the chief. It's hard for our firefighters, our cops, our teachers to live in the city where they work, to live in the city where they're investing a good chunk of their time. So perhaps another product could be put on that land. So that's still a long ways off, but it's something I find very exciting. Also, we talked about transportation. So when COVID hit our area lost all bus routes, and they haven't come back. So that parcel by the yacht club would be perfect because the trail is right there, which means they don't have to cross Highway 7, they don't have to cross Smithtown Road, and these individuals could walk or bike into Excelsior, which we call our downtown too, we all do, where there's a bank, there's a post office, there's a library, there's a grocery store, things that we don't have in our city. So that's a possibility for the future. It's only in the concept phase at the moment, and it hasn't come to the council because everything is in steps. And but if that would come, I would be very supportive of something that meets our density requirements and provides a different type of housing product for our community.
Okay.
Can I piggyback on that transit thing? Metro Cities is an organization of, I think most cities here are part of Metro Cities, of metropolitan cities. And now on their, in fact, on their policy is a policy to allow cities to opt out of Metro Transit, which, well, I actually got it added there in their policy, and I occasionally push with our legislators for an opt-out, which in my mind, we have zero. We also suffer from zero transit service in Greenwood, and transit will admittedly, the world of transit is changing hugely. What worked in the past probably won't work in the future. It's not necessarily easy to have the density for transit, but still there's a need for it. And in my mind, the ability for an area such as ours to potentially opt out of Metro Transit and maybe talk to Southwest Transit as an example, we want to provide service, look at options in terms of reintroducing some transit service in the area would be, now that would require state legislation, but that would be something that would be very worthwhile to have an opt-out option for cities such as ours. Just FYI, piggybacking on your transit comments.
Yeah.
So.
We good? This is a little bit of a long one. There seems to be a growing trend of building large storage areas in residential areas. On Smithtown Road in Victoria, which is in this area, a residential structure with 6,000 square foot garages under construction. This is an area of single family homes, and according to the neighbor, that's large enough to hold 27 cars or 50 cars if lifts are installed. So purchasing a home in a residential area typically comes with the expectation that zoning regulations will maintain the area's residential character rather than allowing commercial-type buildings. So would ordinances in any of your cities allow this type of structure to be built?
I think at Tonka Bay, I'm not sure we have a lot big enough to put a garage with 27 cars.
Double-decker.
That would be news to me. Certainly, we see quite a few variances because roughly 2/3 of the lots in Tonka Bay are non-conforming. So that puts residents in a position where even if they just want to build a prototypical home, the lot is small enough that they're automatically they're required to get a variance in order to build. But I don't anticipate Tonka Bay would want to have storage facilities in our residential areas, no.
Okay.
Not as a permitted use, probably as a variance, but I think we get into that conversation about what kind of communities do we want to have, how do we want to review variances, how do we reflect the character and nature of our cities and then maintain that standard. So it gets complicated, but to the point of your question, not as a permitted use, no.
Again, just like kind of Adam, I don't think we have any lots that big in Excelsior. We went through a couple of years ago with doing a lot of ordinances reviews because we were getting the McMansions built on a lot of our properties. So we did a lot of rezoning, a lot of kind of, as Mayor Labadie said, some redistricting of stuff, and have made it so, yeah, I mean, something like that's not going to get built in Excelsior. And, you know, we always have the HPC if you really want to put leverage on somebody and make them not want to build, so.
Yeah. I don't think that would pass in Shorewood either. But the housing bill that Mayor Fletcher raised earlier, last year when it was at the state level, it was nicknamed the missing middle housing bill. It was not passed, but had that passed, it would have taken local control away from all of us. Where, like Mayor Fletcher said, if a certain lot size sold, they could put up whatever, basically, a sixplex, an eightplex, whatever. And that proposed bill that thankfully didn't pass also took away the ability of neighbors to participate in a public hearing. So I don't think that type of structure would pass in Shorewood. We don't have the land for that. But also, I think as long as we retain local control, that neighbors have the ability to speak out, that's a huge component. Because the residents need to have a say in how they want their neighborhood to be. Of course, zoning and things like that apply, but you can't just shut out resident input, so.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't have our zoning code memorized, but I really, as I think through it, I just don't see that somebody could build something like that in Greenwood. I mean, maybe the mayor of Deephaven would sell his marina and office building in Greenwood to a developer, but I don't think he's going to do that to build a storage facility. I don't think that's happening, right? So that's kind of the mayor of Deephaven is probably the biggest taxpayer in Greenwood with his property. So, and it's a small world. I just don't see options for somebody to do that.
Okay, great, thanks. So I haven't kept up with this, but what's the status of the Highway 7 corridor project?
Well, we just talked about that at our meeting on Monday night, and if anyone wants to come up later and look at these after the meeting, I do have a couple charts here. So, as you know, the Highway 7 corridor, that is a state highway. That is a MnDOT-controlled highway. So the most the cities could do would be close their access onto Highway 7 or say no right turn, no left turn onto 7. And all that's going to do for most of our cities is push that traffic to another intersection, which is also probably an uncontrolled intersection. So it really kind of ties our hands. We need MnDOT to make improvements. You may remember a few years ago, MnDOT had like a interactive website where people could click on intersections that they were concerned about and log their comments. Shorewood's intersections logged over 1,200 comments, and we don't even have 8,000 residents. So this is a huge issue for all of our communities, and now they have another study that they're doing, and they're at the step now of evaluating design options. So what does that mean? They're looking at, could a roundabout go somewhere? Could a stoplight go somewhere? Things that go into those kind of decisions, there's many factors, such as how much right-of-way do they have at that intersection? If MnDOT doesn't have as much at this one, it becomes a very expensive property acquisition for MnDOT versus if they have a lot of property in the right-of-way at the next intersection. They'll start looking at traffic counts again. So they're at the stage of evaluating the design options by pulling the information they've already gotten, talking to the engineers, and then they're going to identify funding and project implementation. What does this mean? We're still looking at a couple years, guys. And I know that's crazy. And I've tried to be as big of a champion and advocate for this as I can. But the most really that the city leaders can do is go to our state legislature, our state senator, and to the Senate, testify in front of the Senate Transportation Committee, testify in front of the House Committee, which we've done, and beg them for money. And then hopefully MnDOT can keep kicking it into gear. We did receive $250,000 as a corridor coalition, and that is for the mayors and the engineers to kind of form a unified voice. If each of our little cities goes to MnDOT individually, we lose strength. If we go and say, here's 10 mayors and we represent 30 miles and we need help, we have a much stronger voice. So that funding allows us to start these meetings, which we've only had 3. One of them, we included the chiefs of that whole corridor of police and fire. We included the superintendents of that corridor because we're talking numerous school districts. And it just got the mayors talking amongst ourselves and really realizing we're not in a battle against each other. We all want improved safety. So all we can keep doing is keep plugging away. And it's been a real lesson for me. I really thought I could fix this like in the first year being mayor. And it's a slow process. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll leave these 2 handouts up here if anyone would like to look at them later. They're also on the Shorewood City website.
Can I make a comment? I really need to compliment Mayor Labaday, along with, and Mayor Wearsome of Minnetonka is also really, I think you 2 jointly have working on taking the lead. I know he's not here and not part of this, but he is also, I think you'd agree, he's also been active with you. I think you initiated it, but he's been really supportive. I'd really like to compliment you on taking the lead on this important issue.
Thank you.
Okay, just so you know. And then, can I just add a slightly personal story? Is that okay? To highlight this? We all know there was a fatality at Christmas Lake Road and it's Highway 7. And what was that, August or September?
Yeah.
And in early November, I was heading on Christmas Lake Road and making a left turn to head east on Highway 7. And I'm about third back in traffic at the light there. And you know, that light, everybody's making a left turn from Greenwood. They're all in a hurry because that light is short and you got to move. So I'm third back, I believe. 2 cars go ahead of me, make their left turns. I go to make my left turn. There's a pedestrian in the crosswalk. I stop, okay? I get rear-ended, real solid. The police chief tells me that was a near miss for the pedestrian, okay? If you think about it, they didn't see my white van. They hit me, that's great. Pedestrian was fine. I mean, it just, to me, brought home, personally, you know, the danger that exists on this highway. You know, and that's, so 1 fatality, horrible. 1 near miss, that's not good either, in my mind. Thank you.
And I believe, weren't you on the way to a regional council of mayors meeting?
Yeah, I had to apologize for being late. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the person who hit me asked, well, what was the pedestrian doing there? And I'm going, well, that's a crosswalk. Yeah. Okay.
All right, moving on. So we all know that the seasons are not quite what they used to be. So can you speak to any measures your cities are taking to protect natural resources and infrastructure against climate change?
I'll jump in. It's tough for a city of 1,500 people to make large, lasting change, but we do what we can. And I would say there's two things. One of these I think I brought up last year too, but as we continue to improve our roads, we've started to introduce curb and gutter, which is a newer concept for Tonka Bay. It makes the roads not only more structurally sound and they'll last longer, but it helps us to manage the stormwater more effectively so that it doesn't go into the lake and hopefully helps with habitat. The other thing that we've done as a city, and this was a policy change that we made a number of years ago in an effort to reduce our I&I charges with the Met Council. Anytime a home is sold within Tonka Bay, as part of the closing process, you're required to go in and monitor your, essentially it's not stormwater drainage, it's the wastewater, thank you, from your home to the city connection. And if there's a deficiency that's found, we have rules in place that needs to be taken care of before the house can close and then change hands. And we're actually, we knew it would be a slow process when we put that policy into place, because you basically only have a shot at fixing this when the house changes hands, which doesn't happen very often. But it's been in effect long enough now that we're actually starting to see some really real change. The charges that we're receiving from the Met Council are significantly lower than they have been in the past.
Deephaven is in our second year of addressing inflow and infiltration. We're focusing on our mains, but also on the lateral services from people's homes to the sewer main. So much like what you're talking about, trying to cut down on that. It saves the city money, saves everybody a lot of headaches. Additionally, we are focusing on a couple of big stormwater projects, and our council, as of the last year or two, has really started to focus on invasive species. And I know in terms of a larger impact, one city may not make a difference, but if all the cities make an effort, the aggregate total certainly can. So we actually have a meeting in about 2 weeks to address buckthorn in some of the public spaces. I know that we spend a lot of time talking about aquatic invasive species and what we can do as a community to try to make a difference on our side of the lakes.
Excelsior has really been quite proactive in the green space part of it, I think. With a lot of our pocket parks, we're going to be working on our pocket park policy later on this year. Obviously, the pavilion and putting the garden on top of that. So a lot of ours has been more with, like I say, more of the green space and trying to enhance that and reduce our heat island or whatever we want to call it by trying to fill in green space wherever we can within the urban area. So that's been primarily our focus, I think.
Shorewood's done a number of different things, and probably everything we've done has involved a huge amount of controversy. One of the areas of our city, the Shorewood Oaks neighborhood, Strawberry neighborhood, the neighborhood that abuts Freeman Park on the western edge, we started having like these 100-year rains, like every 5 years. And that whole area of town would flood. And they would have water in their basements, and we would get phone calls, I've lost my wedding pictures, they were in the basement. Just horrible calls. I've had to gut my whole downstairs level. We're afraid we have mold growing in the home. So several councils ago, we took the action of creating what we called Shorewood Ponds, which for a while looked like a large hole. And the purpose of it was that it would become a natural drainage area where this groundwater could go and eventually make its way into Lake Minnetonka naturally. Well, after it was finished, it was that dry summer, the really drought summer. So then all the naysayers said, this is a waste of an engineering disaster, a waste of taxpayer money. But now the past couple summers, as we've had wet summers, those ponds have filled up. And around the ponds, we created walking trails and we used native plantings. So it's taken a long vision, but it is now, in my opinion, an amenity to our city that I'm proud of. It was an expensive project. Anything with infrastructure is expensive. But I'll say that project that was done several years ago will never be that cheap ever again. Things only get more expensive. And some of our large projects that we did at a time when money was very cheap. We borrowed when money was cheap, and we borrowed a lot of money for these projects, but we maintained our AA+ bond rating. That's not something that's given out lightly. It's given out when your auditors of your city review your books and say, hey, they're making wise fiscal generational decisions. They're doing good things with taxpayer funds. So that was one of the things, was our Shorewood ponds, our native plantings. Like Dan mentioned, we've also started addressing buckthorn, but we did it in more of a reactionary method. We received a $50,000 grant from the DNR to remove buckthorn. And it kind of morphed right in front of us because the grant required cutting and daubing on the raw cut. Think of like a big Q-tip. And that was DNR's request and part of the grant. But we had many, many residents coming out saying they don't want any chemicals in our city. So we went back and we modified the terms of the grant so we wouldn't lose the money. But it involved many more manpower hours. And it's not a sustainable use of our manpower. We did have 2 large-scale volunteer events that were organized by residents themselves, that were well-attended, and the residents who showed up worked their butts off. But that's not sustainable to eternity either. So as a result, we're starting at the City of Shorewood, we're creating a Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan. We're in the infancy stage of that. The stage we're at is accepting RFPs for a qualified consultant who can provide professional services to our city to help us develop this plan that looks at our parks, looks at our environmental issues, looks at our native plantings, looks at control of emerald ash borer in a more totality package. So that's some of the things Shorewood's been doing, and our biggest thing is that we're creating this master plan that I think is really going to help guide us through some of the issues that 10 years ago we didn't anticipate, we didn't foresee. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Greenwood has really not done any specific measures. I think I would say is that our zoning code, and this really predates concerns with climate change and greenhouse gas, has been has, I think, strongly pushed for maintaining, it may say, try maintain the green in Greenwood. Some people, for example, ask why a deck that is on the ground that has slats is still counted as hardcover. Well, that deck doesn't look like grass or plantings, so we don't, even if you can get water through the deck quote, we still count it as hardcover as an example. And I think the whole push is to keep a balance in the landscape, and that when you're building your house, that maybe you don't appreciate the fact that there's some restrictions on what you can build, but once you're living in Greenwood, you actually appreciate the restrictions on what your neighbors can build, if that kind of makes sense. And the hard reality is, based on the property values, I don't think that what we've done is hurt the value of properties in Greenwood. It's been an impediment to people wanting to live in our city. I mean, obviously we're on the lake, that doesn't hurt either, close, whether you're on the lake or close to the lake, but still, regardless.
Are any of the cities contemplating using like solar panels or anything to do electrical things?
Well, this building that you're in, the Shorewood Community and Event Center, is located in Shorewood. And the building itself, the fund that funds this building is not sustaining itself. Years ago, councils took the approach that this was an amenity to the city, and just like parks. Parks the amount of maintenance you put into a park, even if you're charging small amount of user fees to ball clubs, and it's not covering the maintenance of the park. That's an amenity the city's providing to their residents. Councils ago looked at this more of an amenity. Councils change. When councils change, philosophies can change, and our current council is looking at this more as an expenditure. So we just talked about this building and possible revisions, possible alterations we could make, possible changes of use, and one of the discussions was possible solar panels. So that's about as far as Shorewood has gotten a possible thought towards that direction.
Okay.
I mean, with a lot of the commons development, there's really been no discussion with that, for any of that down there either, so I don't know if there will be.
Do you have residents that have solar panels?
Yes.
I think we have a few, yes. Well, I know we have one, for sure.
Well, I don't remember the exact year, but, so I've been doing this for 8 years, and it was early on in my tenure. Tonka Bay did take a look at solar as an option for houses, and we did pass something so that houses have the capability of installing it if they so choose. But at the same time that we did that, we also had our city engineer complete a study to see how much sunlight Tonka Bay receives. So we're oftentimes referred to as Tonka Bay Woods. So there's opportunity for solar, but if you don't get sunlight because of all the trees that are around your house, it doesn't do you much good. So but anything we can do, we're up for it.
Okay. Here's a question about kind of infrastructure. The question is, where are we at with fiber for internet?
Good, I can jump in on this one, at least on the front end. I'll take a run at it. One of our accomplishments this year was bringing fiber to City Hall. And we know that fiber runs down some of our main roadways. We've worked with media.
Sorry.
Okay. We've worked with
My bad.
MediaCom and some other groups to try to extend that to some of the more residential areas, and I know that's in the works. But there's a lot of interest, and has been, in Deephaven with trying to get fiber to all of the homes.
The city of Shorewood was searching for this for many years, and we were pursuing companies that frankly didn't find our city the way we're laid out, the fact we have 1.5 inhabited islands, as a profitable use of their fiber. But now we do have a company that has started coming into our city, has started laying some, and we've recently had another company reach out to the city. So that would be great. Competition is always good. We're glad it has started in our city, but we would like to see it throughout the whole city.
So is that something the city would say is a utility, or how does that work if there's more than one cable laying company laying the fiber?
I think we would treat it like they are independent contractors. That's an independent, it's not so much a city
Sorry.
utility, it's their own infrastructure.
I have 2 fiber lines in front of my house. You can build multiple fiber lines, and multiple companies can come in and compete. Yeah. Now, one fiber line I can't access because it's a through line that doesn't stop at my house, and the other one I can. Greenwood, to answer the question, Quantum Fiber, which is actually CenturyLink under a different name, built out most of Greenwood, just didn't even tell us this summer. And so most of Greenwood has fiber except for one area where they don't do, where the homeowner association doesn't allow, everything was done underground originally, so that neighborhood does not get, they elected not to, because they basically just strung overhead instead of burying, and they said it was cost prohibitive. That's what I've heard from the residents, to bury, but most of Greenwood now has fiber, Quantum Fiber, which is kind of nice. Actually, it's very nice.
Well, and I don't know exactly how this is going to flesh out with regards to the HOAs in Tonka Bay, but Just recently, Mediacom did reach out to Tonka Bay and is interested in setting up a franchise agreement to provide fiber to the entire city.
I believe Excelsior has got Quantum the same time you guys were, so.
Very possibly. Yeah, I was just dealing with the calls when their folks were not cleaning up or a couple things. The end result was good, I think, but there's always something when you have, yeah.
Their restoration work was not the best, if I remember correctly, by.
Gotcha.
There's a question about composting. What percentage of households in your cities compost? Any idea?
No idea. We did have residents who reached out and had interest in composting. And as a city, what we did was we set up a central repository at City Hall so that in the event that someone wanted to compost and take their refuse to that location, they can. But I don't know the numbers behind it. I don't know how many people are utilizing it.
Okay. Anybody
Yeah.
else have any input?
I think there was a change last year in how we could compost through garbage companies, and it wound up being Excelsior. We've had to go to basically a one-site collection. You can't get it picked up in front of your house any longer.
Oh,
So we've had to, those people that had those cans can't do it. I think it had a little bit more to do with the economics of it and what they wanted to charge, and it wasn't really feasible for us to have residents have those cans. It just was better for the city to kind of assume that role.
okay.
I don't know the exact number of the people composting in Shorewood. I'm looking back at Eric Wilson, our recycling coordinator. Eric has been a huge asset to our community. He's educated the community about recycling, about composting, and he partnered with the Minnetonka High School Vantage program, their sustainability strand. And they created a 3-minute video that's a commercial about, you can't put that in here, and a hand comes up out of the can, and it was
Frightening.
It's great that it was cute. It's great that we're getting the youth in our community involved in this concept, aware of this concept. Shorewood has 2 drop-off compost sites where residents can take their compost to that site. But there are locks. It becomes a bit cumbersome when you're wearing mittens or gloves. So we're exploring the possibility of expanding a more robust compost system, but it's also an issue that's being talked about at the county level. And it's kind of like we don't want to go forward and create all this work and then maybe it gets shot down by the county anyway. We'd rather work in conjunction with the county. So we're kind of moving forward, but keeping a big eye on what the county's doing and the direction that could go, so that we're not, duplicating the efforts of our staff with their staff.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, I would say for better or worse, sometimes for worse, sometimes for better, the county sets a lot of the rules of the road, and some of those rules of the road are driven by the state for both recycling and composting. Our compost is, thank you Deephaven for providing a shared compost site, so we appreciate that. We pay them for it. They don't do it for nothing, but it's a very fair charge. And but I think that composting is very much a work in progress in terms of how to get a solution that works meaningfully, that people say is whatever. It certainly is very much a work in progress. On the recycling side, there are reports, and it seems like Greenwood is always, our hauler tells us that Greenwood is one of the top cities for recycling, so we're always kind of, in Hennepin County, so we're always kind of proud of that, So, and not only how much we recycle, but I think really importantly, the quality of the recycling, because the unstated thing on recycling is that, some people want to recycle a lot of stuff, and they throw all kinds of stuff into it that actually contaminates, so what you really want is clean recycling on the multi-sort that is proper stuff that goes through the system, and sometimes more is not better. It's the good stuff, the stuff that should be there.
All right. So many mature cities in your communities are being removed due to development and infrastructure projects and invasive species, et cetera. What efforts are the cities making to conserve, protect, and/or replace your city's tree canopy?
Well, Excelsior is a tree city, and we are very proud of that. We wear that plaque a lot. We just went through our ordinance, actually the last council meeting, and redid our ordinance using a lot of the state arborists' recommendations about things, keeping canopies high. Some of the most contentious things had to do with actually raising the levels along the street because as being the ex-fire chief, I always tried to tell people using a fire truck to trim your trees wasn't good for the tree or the fire truck. Excelsior's been very active in that. We've been very proactive. Jennifer Carone, our council member, she is a huge spearhead in that, and I don't think she will let that go if we try to take it from her.
The city of Shorewood does have some requirements when developments go in or when a new house is built on a lot regarding tree replacement. Another thing is, for years, we were trying to preserve and save a certain number of what we called heritage trees. These were large ash trees throughout our park. Unfortunately now, the ash borer is in our city. And so putting our money and our time towards preserving these large trees is going to be something that's discussed in that comprehensive master plan that I spoke about earlier. And that's a question we have for the professional that the city plans to hire to give us guidance on that. The reason we were trying to preserve them was because if we cut down every ash tree all at once, some of our parks would have looked pretty naked. So we were trying to do it on a revolving, rotating thing. Another thing we do as a city is we offer a tree sale. And residents can buy trees at a very, very affordable cost. And it's a number of native varieties. The ash tree, the trees the boulevard trees that all got these diseases, cities have slowly learned that you need a variety of trees going in so that as the next pest comes, it doesn't take out everything you just put in today. So we offer a variety of trees through our tree sales that residents can get at a very affordable cost. And we sell out every year.
I've been on the city council Greenwood since like 2008, mostly as a council member, and this predates my time. In fact, a lot of things in Greenwood predate my time, so I can't take credit for them. Greenwood's had a very strong tree ordinance. Yes, there have been some amendments and changes that predate my time on the council, and I think it's been very effective and very beneficial in terms of trees. I think the results speak for themselves, candidly. So we're a very tree-friendly city. And the other comment, we did do an an ash tree inventory, and we took the key trees that we saw around the city on public properties. We had a practice of injecting them to basically protect them from the ash borer because you can do injections. You have to do them every 2 to 3 years. And the hope is that those trees we can preserve some of those trees. You can't do it for every tree. It doesn't make sense, but to a certain extent, we've done that.
Well, and similar to both Shorewood and Greenwood, Tonka Bay already has ordinance that's built directly in so that if you're developing a home, you're required to plant a certain number of trees. We did receive a grant. Unfortunately, I can't remember where it came from right now, but we did receive a grant to help us do an audit and inventory of our current canopy, and the city's been working its way through that to remove older trees, dead trees, invasive types of not trees, I'm thinking of buckthorn. But right now, we're in the midst of a construction project, which is like one of the largest construction projects that Tonka Bay has done probably in the last 50 to 60 years. And we've had to remove not only a number of ash trees, some of which were already infected, but just trees in general that were in the right-of-way that were impeding the construction of the roads. So actually at our next council meeting, our city engineer with whom we contract is going to be bringing a plan forward for us to replace all of the trees that were cut down in the right-of-way during the construction process.
In the city of Deephaven, we don't have a tree preservation ordinance that regulates trees on private property. We do have requirements to plant trees like most of the other cities do when you develop a lot. We have been very aggressive in funding public works to address some of the emerald ash borer trees that we have. In the rights of way, there are just a lot of ash trees, and they're infected and they're dying. So one of our focuses is making sure that we stay ahead of that 3-year curve and remove those in a timely manner so they don't become safety hazards for people using the roadway. In line with that, though, we're working with the park board and the council on a tree replacement plan where we've identified areas in our public spaces, parks, beaches, where trees would be beneficial. And we're working on a process and a policy where when we remove a healthy tree, and probably even in consideration of some of the ash trees that are being removed, we replace those trees with 1 or 2. And we know that it takes a very long time for those trees to mature. So we're really trying to get after this now so people in 20, 30 years can have the benefit that we see right now with the trees that we have in our parks.
Okay. Okay, there's one other question about garbage. It says, Excelsior has single-service garbage hauler. What are the other cities doing to address the issue?
Tonka Bay has single service.
You don't have any?
No, we have a single service hauler. Yeah, we contract.
I said, well.
We contract with Republic, so Republic provides trash services, recycling services to the entire city.
Okay.
Yep, Deephaven does as well. We have single service, and it's an interesting question that sometimes comes up, whether it's beneficial to not have that and allow the open market. But the challenge is then you have so many more heavy trucks driving on your roads, it's gonna drastically increase the rate of deterioration of your infrastructure. Also, there's some argument that by using that single source, we're driving down prices for the residents by the economy of scale.
Okay.
So we are single source, as you mentioned. I think to your choice, the trucks going down the road and also the 5 days a week, there could be garbage cans versus right now you only have to see them once just for that optics part of it.
Okay.
Oh, you want me to go next?
Yeah,
Well, you're next in line. Okay.
I'm going to be a bit.
Okay. Yeah, so, yeah. For recycling, everybody else, we're single Republic. By the way, they really increased their charges this year. It was unbelievable. And by the way, everybody's seeing on the residential bills, but your recycling bills went up big time in Greenwood, and I apologize for that, but we had no control over that. They were the only bid that we could get, and I personally solicited multiple bids. If you're a Greenwood resident, we tried. And for the hauling, the trash, whoever wants to come in fact, we'd love to have a few more come into Greenwood to haul trash since get a little more competition and prices down, but we do require smaller trucks. So the whole idea is that our trucks are smaller, the damage to the roads is less from the smaller trucks. We require smaller trucks. And now,
It's challenging in the neighborhoods too to get big trucks through some of your twisty, turny roads that are around the lake, so I'm
yeah,
assuming.
they could get the bigger trucks on the road, but the damage would be major. And yeah, and by the way, we're 1 day a week. Thursday's our day, so it's not spread out over multiple days. The haulers all agreed to go with such as they are. But Mayor Labaday, you're going to take 10 minutes.
Baby. These are fighting words in Shorewood. So I've been the mayor now 5 years, and I was on council before that. I've been involved with the city, over a decade, 12 years. And, we can discuss the budget that's for the whole year, everything we're going to do, and maybe one person comes. We have the truth and taxation hearing. Maybe one person comes. But garbage, we will have 3 topics: garbage, chickens, and snowmobile lanes that access Lake Minnetonka. We will have standing room only. And what I support one unified hauler for our city. It makes sense environmentally. It makes sense infrastructure-wise. It makes sense that the city has the ability to annually review the contract, and if the hauler knows they're getting all 3,000 plus households or none, they're gonna give you a really good price. But when we had this on the ballot, well, not on the ballot, when we had it on the council discussion agendas years ago, several years ago, we were shocked at the level of passion on both sides of the aisle. And we conducted a survey, which is tricky. What questions do you ask? How are they worded? Are they biased? Who do you send them to? What time of the day do you send them? Like, surveys make me go crazy now. And we abided by the results of the survey, which more than a majority of the residents said they wanted their freedom of choice. And it was very frustrating. Our council has 5 people. Something can pass with a 3-2. And councils have changed over. We have former Councilwoman Laura Hotvet, we have former Councilmember Paula Collies, and they understand the frustration I feel because they are like-minded. But not only that, you guys, like Vine Hill Road up by Red Savoy's Pizza, the median is the division between Shorewood and Minnetonka. So the west side, we have our garbage trucks, and Minnetonka has their garbage trucks. 62nd Street, kind of past Cathcart Park, that's Victoria. They have their garbage trucks on a different day than our garbage trucks, which we've got multiple haulers. So I would love to have unified garbage. And I hope my current council is ready to tackle this, because it literally gave us PTSD. There's also a large garbage hauling lobby group that started peppering our residents, our council, with literature, showing up at our meetings. Cameras were coming. I mean, it was just over garbage, or chickens. And I'm ready to take it on again. I hope the rest of our council is. If nothing else, I'd say we put it on a ballot and let the residents decide. In Shorewood, this is fighting words because it's going against the way it's always been done. We've always chosen our own garbage hauler. And then we have new residents coming in saying, what do you mean I have 6 garbage trucks on my street? And so many of our battles are how it's always been versus how we would like it to be today. And garbage is one of those battles.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I let you go first, Tom.
So I don't even know if I should ask this question, but we'll see how it goes. So what's the current opinion on merging some of the lakes around the cities to become one, or merging utilities and facilities to help cut administrative costs? I know you do that in some things, like the police and various kinds of things, so have at it, people.
City of Deephaven provides administrative services and police services to the City of Woodland. We provide public works services to the City of Greenwood. I think that all of us are in at least one, maybe multiple joint power agreements to share services. I think that's the way of the future for smaller cities. I don't think it's sustainable for any small city to be able to provide all of the necessary services and amenities that our residents want. So I think by doing that, we stay viable and we can focus and specialize and provide higher levels of service for our neighbors and support each other.
I would second that. I mean, certainly as part of South Lake, we all share fire and police. Not Deephaven from a police perspective, you have your own police department, but that's certainly helpful, and I think the level of service that we receive from our first responders is significantly better because we do join forces and we have kind of top-notch facilities and just assets that can help us in a time of need. Even from a public works standpoint, I know we have, Tonka Bay has agreements with both Shorewood and Excelsior where we share, I think, the jet truck. But when it comes to the administrative side of things, certainly Tonka Bay hasn't taken a look at this at any time recently, but I do, in conversations I've had with our previous mayor, he had sat down and crunched the numbers, and it didn't make economic sense for Tonka Bay at the time. Certainly things could change, but right now I feel like there are so many other priorities and things that we need to think about from a city perspective that this hasn't been something that's been on our radar.
I think Mayor Jennings hit on a good point when he said the previous mayor. The joint services only work as well as the cooperation of the current councils. And we are in one of the oldest, if not the oldest, joint powers agreement for our police in the whole state of Minnesota. It works well. But there were times before I became mayor when I was the alternate for the coordinating committee of the police department, and I attended those meetings, and it didn't work as well. And the current group, we work well together. We have a meeting of the minds. But you can't guarantee that will always be the case, and that's when things start to fall apart. For example, this building used to be owned by many of the cities. And when it came time to do repairs, there was no meeting of the minds, and it resulted in litigation between the cities. Now Shorewood owns the building. So I've seen it both ways. Services can be combined very successfully when the governing bodies are in alignment. But services can fall apart and become even more costly when the governing body disagrees with each other. So we have 1.5 inhabited islands. We contract with Mound Fire for our islands, because by the time Excelsior Fire would make it over there, it's a long time. And Mound Fire is currently negotiating a joint powers agreement with some of their neighboring cities. And I do agree with Dan, this is the route a lot of the smaller cities need to go to sustain their services at the most competitive and highest level for their residents. However, I'm always a little cautious because I've seen it blow up. We have trails that one city plows to the city line and it stops. But I do think partnerships can be a really great thing. And I would continue advocating for that. Like Mayor Jennings said, we have pieces of equipment that we own jointly. That makes a lot of sense. We have certain times that our service providers or our employees may help the other city. That makes sense. So I think it's got to be on a case-by-case basis of what service we're talking about merging, but I'm not opposed to it.
I think everybody kind of should know where I stand, since I was the fire chief that created the joint powers for the fire department. So shared services, and to Mayor Labady's point, her and I have had many conversations about what can we do to help our cities and try and reduce some costs and that stuff. And it does, as Adam said, there turns into sometimes it's just not all that beneficial. I mean, I can go back to say, back when I was fire chief, literally Excelsior and Shorewood looked at merging the public works departments, and it came close until we found out they're in 2 separate unions, and that ended that right now. And so there's a lot of other hurdles besides us 5 all getting along that come into play that sometimes you just don't think about until you get there. Like I say, I feel bad for Greenwood because unfortunately I think you have to get help from everybody, but
Nothing wrong with that.
But with that, I mean, I like I say, Mayor Lappy and I have talked a lot. I know Deephaven and I have talked a bunch about some different things that we can share, because it's going to be in the economics of all this and us trying to keep all of your tax base as low as we possibly can. We're well aware of it. It's just, does it fundamentally work or not for what we're trying to do?
So just before this mayor's forum, we were all invited to and we attended the push-in of a new fire truck. That is a ceremony where the men and women who are the current firefighters literally pushed the truck into the fire station and it joined the fleet. after it had been blessed by the priest, after the priest gave a prayer for their safety. It was very emotional. And the chief gave a speech. And he said, you know, this fire truck, when we bought it, what was it, 2022? Just arrived now. And it cost $825,000 when we purchased it. Last year, we purchased the identical truck.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same, 1.25 million. And if we needed to purchase that exact truck this year, it's going to be even more. Like I said earlier, nothing will ever be as cheap as it was when you did it. Whether that's purchasing equipment, doing infrastructure, whatever. And, you know, those are huge expenses for our little cities, that if we didn't have joint powers, we would not be able to get that piece of equipment that saves lives in our communities. So, yeah.
From Greenwood's end, over the years, I've never really heard of grounds. I mean, it's kind of like everybody looks at Greenwood, 700 people and quarter square mile or whatever it is, and goes, man, why even exist, I suppose. But I've never heard a groundswell of Greenwood residents wanting to not have a Greenwood. And candidly, from an administrative standpoint, we actually probably have the lowest administrative costs of any of the cities, believe it or not. And and it works really well. We're in a JPA for the Excelsior Fire District. We're in a JPA for South Lake. Deephaven, we're really happy that you came back and took over our public works again for us. So we love having Deephaven take care of our public works, so that's great cooperation. We meet at Deephaven City Hall, and Excelsior is kind enough to be our city clerk and our city counter, and then Minnetonka takes care of our permitting, and it confuses the daylights out of everybody else. But it kind of, you know, it kind of works, and I just go that, hey, if residents are happy fundamentally and it's working, what's the problem you're trying to solve? So until I hear a groundswell from residents that they don't want there to be a Greenwood, I guess we're just going to keep having a Greenwood, in my opinion.
Something that is funny is one of my first days when I went into our storage facility where we store all our records that we have to keep, I see the mayor of Greenwood in there digging through files. Oh boy, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, small town, you do what you got to do.
There you go. Well, it's kind of come to that time where we're done with the questions, but it's your turn to sort of present us with your closing remarks. So if you remember, I asked you to kind of think about the accomplishments for your city for the past year, and then if you had a pot of gold, what would you do with it? So Adam?
All right, thank you. So wanted to say thank you, Peg, for helping to arrange this, and to the league. I'd also like to thank, I believe we've got Senator Ann Johnson Stewart, who's here. We've got Representative Andrew Myers. He was here. I don't know if he's still here.
He's still here.
Is it? I could see you earlier. There was a straight line, but I can't see you right now. Anyway, and I believe we also have Representative Acomb here as well. So, gotcha. So thank you for coming. Yeah, you know, 2024 in review for Tonka Bay, we did a number of things. We made substantial completion on the 2 miles of the main water line that we needed to repair. And to put this in perspective, we had 14 water main breaks in 2019. They're unexpected. Our valve system was antiquated, so in some cases we'd have to shut down the whole city. And it would happen unexpectedly. It happened to me once while I was in the shower. So just not a great thing. It's inconvenient. It does create a safety issue as well because your fire hydrants are out. We have a significantly older population in Tonka Bay as well. So just not a great thing, something we really need to concentrate on. Since that's been replaced, we have had 0 main water line breaks. So, yeah. But yeah, no, we continued forward because that's not kind of the end of the story. Essentially, those breaks then sort of push their way into the ancillary lines that feed off of the main line. But we really grabbed the bull by the horns on this one, and last year we started to improve 18% of the city's water, sewer, and roads. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the water. But if you go in to fix the water, you're going to have to fix the road anyway, and if you're down there, you may as well go ahead and replace the sewer because that's just the best time to do it from an economic standpoint. And so we'll be wrapping the last of that up this upcoming year. It'll include looped systems and updated valve shutoffs so that in the event that there are breaks in the future, we'll be able to localize it significantly better. And it all around should be better for the neighbors as a whole and the community. As I mentioned before, we're in the process of reviewing our code. That was something that, at least from a council perspective, we kicked off yesterday. We're anticipating being able to open that up for public hearings and the community is at large for comment and input probably later summer. We just finished up, or we're finishing up our fishing pier. So that's going to be done actually this spring. Probably the 5,000 cubic foot elephant in the room for Tonka Bay is the pile of dirt out in front of City Hall right now, which I'll circle back around on real quickly. Going forward in 2025, we've got a new city administrator with us who started on the 21st in January. So welcome. He's been doing a fantastic job already. We're going to wrap up our infrastructure projects. We're going to try and finish up our capital plans to include, we're trying to prioritize it based on the number of breaks that are happening in any particular neighborhood. Sorry. We're going to continue our parks improvement. Right now, we're revamping our website so that it will be able to provide better communication to the community. That will hopefully come out, I believe it's next week. Is that right, CJ? So it's very soon. And we also improved our IT platforms within City Hall. Just to kind of recap on the dirt, the soil, sacred soil that's out in front of City Hall. Essentially, we had made the proposal as a council to identify a location for this soil on August 20th. Essentially, what we were faced with as a city was we were told after the project had begun that we were not allowed to remove these soils like you typically would on a road project, and we needed to keep them and repatriate them within city limits. The choice that we had was that we could have either stopped improving the water lines and the roads, we could have stopped construction and figured out a solution, or we could have found a temporary location for the soils and moved forward with the construction project. Had we stopped construction, we were on the hook for contractually, where we would have been paying what are called delayed construction fees to the contractor to the tune of $15,000 to $18,000 a day, and that adds up really, really fast. So that's how we ended up with the soil that's out front in front of City Hall right now. We put together a plan on September 24th. We've had at least 3 meetings where we've kind of opened it up to the public. Anybody who had concerns or wanted to answer questions at City Hall could have come in on the September 24th, October 8th, and January 14th. And that was roughly about 50% of our total meetings, just to answer questions, just to let people know this is what's going on. I feel like I'm speaking too long, so I'm just going to jump to, am I good? Okay, I guess I'll just say, so basically the game plan starting in late September was the tribes seem to be okay with the proposed location that we have, but we have some homework to do as a city. So in October, November, December, we completed a wetland delineation study and also a phase 1 archaeological study, which took a little more time. Those came back, there were no major issues that were raised. So in January, we passed a topographical survey, which was completed very quickly. And I'm happy to report that we are officially in the design phase of working directly with the tribes to see what it is that they want to create mounds for this location that we've identified within the city. So that being said, pot of gold. It was kind of boring at first because I was thinking infrastructure, but that's what we're going to do anyway. If we had just endless amounts of money,
Yep. Just one thing.
I would love to improve walkability in Tonka Bay, and that would be to put together a trail system in conjunction with making County Road 19 more pedestrian friendly so that we could tie ourselves in more conveniently with like the trail system. The way I've always kind of talked about this is it would be my dream for kids who kind of live on the north side of town to be able to hop on a bicycle, take the trial system safely over to Excelsior, get some ice cream, maybe someday watch a movie again down there, but make it more of kind of a small community. So I apologize for taking so much time, and certainly if anybody has any questions after the fact, you can talk to me.
All right.
Thank you. So the city of Deephaven had a lot of change in the last year. We have 6 employees in City Hall. We have our planner who's been there for, I think, 4 years now. I'm the second longest tenured employee at 1.5 years. So we've been able to manage that change reasonably well. But that creates its own headaches as we learn to work together and grow. But we're fortunate to have a very supportive city council that made everything much easier. I should back up and thank everybody for the ability to be here. I know that Mayor Carlson's traveling. He wishes he could be here, and it's important to him that we're represented. So I'm doing my best from an administrative standpoint to speak on behalf of the council. In terms of achievements, we had a lot of internal achievements. I won't get into those. Outward facing, we received a Sports Authority grant for $300,000 from the Hennepin County Youth Sports Authority that will help fund a new hockey rink that we'll be building this year. So our Village Hall Park plan that started a couple years ago is really coming to fruition. We have different phases, but this is a very good first step. Additionally, we've spent a lot of time planning on our roads. About 30% of our roads are in struggling condition. So we're working on, our maintenance programs for crack filling, fog sealing, using newer products like Maltine or Reclamite to really extend the life cycles of some of these roads, especially when they're newer. Maintaining those on the front end is helpful. And then crack filling, something that's going to be new to our community, but I think is really important. The back half of that then is coming up with a cadence or a plan on replacing our roads. So we've started funding road projects. The plan is to do about 3 miles of roads in 3-year increments, and by the third project, roughly 9 years, we would have that 30% of the roads that we've talked about back in excellent or new condition. It's taken a lot of work and conversations and meetings to try to come up with this plan, but we're fortunate that our community's been patient as we get after this, and hopefully they'll remain patient when it's construction season for 3 miles of roads in a small town in 3-year increments. A pot of gold, it's not going to be exciting. If it were up to me, I would reinvest in our infrastructure. I think if we could fund some of these projects now, it would save a lot of time and money in the future. So really making sure that we have systems and plans in place to afford these infrastructure and park improvements, in planning and doing it in a way where we won't over-escalate the impact on property taxes or spike our taxes by a lack of planning. So we're really trying to be proactive but still aggressive in setting up these plans and doing it in the most fiscally responsible way possible.
First, I'll start off, Peg, thank you and the league for having us.
You're welcome.
Secondly, I really want to thank these 4 people in these 4 cities. Being the new kid on the block, they've been very welcoming. We all have the same problems, and these are great people who have elected some fabulous people to your cities that they're wonderful to bounce my problems off of and keep me pretty focused in what I got going on. Our city, as I said, we've got a lot of developed. The city, if everything goes through, is going to look very different this time next year. And so as hopefully we have a theater, hopefully we have a lot of things. We have our park, the Commons project with, that referendum passed. There's some things that our senator is working on because there was a little bit of a issue in how the referendum was written, and we're working on correcting that. But other than that, that should be going forth and moving along. We had, it's been meetings after meetings. Literally, we have a work session meeting before every council meeting right now. We've done a lot of strategizing, a lot of strategy sessions, figuring out some priorities, one of which was the parking and getting that resolved and moving forwards with trying to correct a lot of the perception and kind of the what's going on with the paid parking in Excelsior. We just recently went out for an RFP to actually hire a parking contractor to take over all of that for us. It's something that really put our staff in the weeds all the time trying to manage, and became very cumbersome. We have several systems that are there. They don't communicate. Things break. Stuff's obsolete. Just all kinds of problems. So we got that moving forwards. That hopefully before season we want to have that completed sometime in May. We've also been working pretty hard to just do something about the one thing that we don't have that everybody else has, except for, unfortunately, Greenwood, is a city hall. And that finally got the green light with this last council meeting that we can start moving forwards with either looking at the sites that they were looking at before, or going forth with, if I can answer a little before the pot of gold, I want that old school building. And I want that bell back up in the tower because we actually have the bell in the Public Works garage. I have a lot of wants with that. But we got to move forward that, and we got to do it in a way that makes sense, that's very transparent to everybody, because that building is expensive if that's what we decide we're going to do and what we can afford to do. So just moving forwards with those things. We've had a lot of turnover on our council, so we've got a lot of people that are trying to get their boots on the ground. Similar with several cities, we've had a bunch of staffing turnover, and so we've had our city manager, Christy Luger, who's just awesome and a great second hand for me, has been working really hard. We did an organizational study, trying to figure out how to best move forwards. We had a bunch of retirements. So we lost what was our assistant city manager and our city attorney. So we've got some things going on internally that we're trying to correct that way and get our staff the help they need, and that takes time. Staff has been looking at different alternatives. Like I said, they did an organizational study that's coming before us. Government moves slow. As a business owner, I struggle with that a little bit. I'm used to being lord of my manor, but I also understand there's a definite process here, right? And a lot of that is transparency to the residents, and that I'm very happy to partake in.
Great.
Other than that, we're trugging along.
Super.
How big is this pot of gold? Yeah, government does move slow, and I find it very frustrating. I ran track all throughout college. I was a sprinter. I don't do things slowly, and I've had to slow down a little bit. If I had an unlimited pot of money, I think the way that we could utilize this to the benefit of our whole community is roads, trails, and water. And the reason I say three things is because it all falls under the veil of infrastructure. The most fiscally sound way to add any of these improvements is to do them all at the same time. When you're improving a road and you're ripping it up, that's the time to add water lines. That's the time to contemplate, should this road have a trail? Should this road have curb and gutter? So as I said earlier, it's very stressful when our firefighters have to go to an area of our city that there are no fire hydrants. It's also very stressful. We've encouraged residents, over half of our cities on private wells, as I said earlier. We can't test the wells of private residents as a city. We've encouraged residents to test their wells and report their findings back to the city. And we have arsenic throughout our city. And the fact that there are kids and grandmas and dogs and everyone's drinking potentially contaminated water is very scary. So I would like to be able to provide clean water with water lines running in our new streets that have curb and gutter and trails as it's appropriate. Shorewood has different pockets of the community that's very unique from a different part of the city. So I'm not saying every single road needs a trail, a gutter, curb and gutter, and a brand new road. And one thing we've done that's going to help us determine how to manage our infrastructure, the City Council recently authorized the preparation of a data-driven pavement management plan. So the pavement management plan that we just approved, it will be a comprehensive study that will assess the condition of every single road in our community. We just received that report at Monday night's council meeting. So every single road in our community now has a score or a rating. And what makes that score? Numerous factors. Not only how the road looks on top, but how it is under the surface. Not only is the road looking good, but are the ends crumbling because there's no curb and gutter? Is it full of potholes? There are so many factors. But this pavement management plan is going to allow the City Council to prioritize the maintenance and the replacement of roads in a fiscally sound manner, or to provide rehabilitation or mill and overlays to our existing roads if the plan says, you know, this road's got another 15 years of life or 20 years of life, then maybe that road doesn't need a complete reconstruction. So this plan is going to help us prioritize repairs, extend the life of existing roads, and also hopefully avoid emergency repairs, which really become expensive as the water main breaks we've heard of. So by implementing the pavement management plan, the city is going to have more efficient budgeting tools and resource allocation. And I would take that pot of gold, put it right into this pavement management plan, look at every road in our community, and do what our SCORE and our public works director and engineer says is necessary for each individual road.
I just heard that Shorewood's going to have the streets paved with gold.
I've asked how big is that pot of gold, you know?
Okay, Tom?
I'm the only one standing between you and going home, so I'll try and make it. So first of all, pot of gold, and then I'll get to accomplishments. Greenwood Park, tennis, pickleball court, well, potentially pickleball court, play area, improvements to park, number one. Then we have a sidewalk trail along Minnetonka Boulevard. Part of it should be separated from Minnetonka Boulevard a bit, and then the whole thing's probably need to work. That I don't ever see a pot of gold coming in the near future, but that would be number two. I'm kind of hopeful on the park that we can actually do it. That would be clearly number one. After that, we get a pot of gold. Candidly, I'd prefer to give the money back to the residents, and reduce our taxes. That would be number three. Okay, may sound nuts, but after that, at least thinking off the cuff, the question right now. Maybe I'll think of 5 more things tomorrow. Accomplishments, I would put 4 things, although they're a little bit different. Number one, and some of them kind of were at the end of 2023. Number one, the agreement with Deephaven for Public Works in 2024, that's, I think, proved to be a huge win for both cities. We really appreciate the service that Deephaven provides. I understand it's been very good for Deephaven in terms of their ability and personnel and so forth. It's worked well for both cities. So I think that's clearly a win. Number 2 win, we had a council member, Bill Cook, who was a great council member, resigned last year, and then Deb Kind resigned as mayor, which put me in the spot. We have the accomplishment in Greenwood is people forget, you know, the mayor's kind of the figurehead, but the council members, we have no more vote than anybody in the council. And I really am blessed to have 4 really great council members with Brian Malo, Jennifer Gallagher, Christy Conrad, and Mike Marty. And we may not always agree, but that's the accomplishment that I really value continuing forward, that we just have I think everybody on my council is really concerned about what's best for the city. We may not always agree what's best, but they really come, I think, it's huge. They're just a really good group. So I think that's a good accomplishment to have that done. That's not me, that's them, but hey, what the heck. Next accomplishment is fire department. We haven't talked about the fire department much, but we have which is unusual for paid-on-call fire department. We have a department that responds very quickly. Typical response time is from time of call till they show up is under 7 minutes. They do a great job. They have great people. They're motivated. And you know what? We're fully staffed, which is, if you read about fire departments in Minnesota, being fully staffed is really unusual. At the push-in ceremony tonight, the fire chief, who used to be with Excelsior, Mike Highland up in Long Lake, told me about the fact that Excelsior is considered to be the kind of the gold standard. I mean, I didn't say it, he did. To have that in a fire department and have, I think it's a testimony to the fire department leadership, whatever. The board doesn't, the people who run it don't, the board and the cities don't create that. But the fact that we have such good, and our people are really showing up. Okay, we've got firefighters showing up. I think that's an accomplishment. You don't appreciate it till you need them, but that's an accomplishment to have the fire department from a personnel standpoint. Great. Lastly, police department. Nobody's talked about this, but Chief Tholen is retiring. After a few years, he's been a fantastic chief. He announced his retirement yesterday. He announced that he's retiring in 3 months. He's giving us plenty of notice. We have an outstanding police department. That is an accomplishment. And by the way, this is shared with all the, well, police, sorry, Dan, you don't get our police department, but everybody else. This is huge. We have great officers. We have motivated officers. Chief Tholen has done a huge job of having, motivated officers who want to go do police work, do their job, do it the right way. We have a really good team. That's a huge testament to him, but that's also a huge testament to our officers. Maybe you don't realize it till you need them, but you know what? I think that's an accomplishment too. And I really thank the chief for his years of service and what he's brought to our department. I really feel very strongly about that. Thank you. I'm done.
All right. Well, as usual, this has been a fun night. I love hearing all the things that you're doing, separately and together. I think that shows well for how you cherish our Lake Minnetonka area, how you work together to make sure that you're protecting it. And I personally appreciate that. I'd like to thank the audience. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the questions that you offered. To Tyler and his crew for recording it. It'll be on our website, as well as the cities will have copies of the recording so they can do with it what they would like. And so on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Lake Minnetonka Plymouth area, I appreciate your coming. Thanks. Have a good night.